Welcome to WP-Tonic, episode 34. Today we're going to bring you the repurposed hangout of the top podcasters, of the top WordPress experts across the country. And for example, today as guests, we have Dustin Hartzman and we have Kim Doyle. Kim and Dustin have the top podcasts on WordPress in the country. I think Kim is 5 and Dustin is number 1. Also remember that you can go ahead and if you want to watch the Hangout live, which is on YouTube, go ahead and press on the artwork, which is the big head on your iTunes, on your Apple, and up will pop a link and you can go and watch the YouTube, watch the faces go back and forth, watch the Hangout. So without further ado, let's get into this episode and enjoy. Welcome to WP-Tonic Live. This will be episode 34 on the repurposed podcast. Jonathan, take it away. Introduce the panel. We've got a great panel today. It's all about, of course, social media and WordPress.
Yes, Bill, we've got a great panel. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So we're going to let our guest panelists introduce them. But ladies first, the great Kim Doyle, the WordPress chick.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I am Kim Doyle, the WordPress chick. Coming in late at the last minute, but thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, you had some slight technical problems, but you, as normal, Kim, you overcome them. So that's great. So on to, I call him Mr. WordPress, Dustin from the Web Engineer podcast. Go and introduce yourself, Dustin.
Hi, yeah, my name is Dustin Hartzler, and I am from, I guess I live in Dayton, Ohio, but I post a podcast over at yourwebsiteengineer.com, and my day job is being a happiness engineer for Automatic. So I'm in the WordPress space, and I get to hang out with smart people in the WordPress world every single day. Been a blast.
I just love the title, Happiness Engineer. That's just a fantastic title, isn't it? On to our normal panel. So on to go ahead and Suzanne, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sally Getch. I'm the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup, and I have been wrestling with intractable problems in CSS today, which doesn't put me in the best of moods. So I'm looking forward to having all of you nice people distract me by talking about something else.
And how's the cats? I saw on Twitter.
They're both in the room, yes. One of them just jumped on my legs and caused her sister to hiss at her.
We look forward to them attacking you again. So,
yes, well, I hope nobody ends up injured.
Right, Joe. On to David. Go on, David, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm David Latta. I organize the WordPress Orlando, both the conference and the meetup. I'm busy trying to prepare for WordCamp Atlanta this weekend, heading out in the morning for driving up there. It is, I think, most of you are on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. I'm a couple hours ahead of you.
Thanks for joining us, because I know that's a lot of work. Yeah. John, would you like to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm John Locke, and I'm an independent WordPress developer, and I do business as Lockdown Design out of Sacramento.
Right, another great podcaster. Introduce yourself, Adam.
I'm Adam Silver. I'm just a friend of Dustin's. I stayed at his house last week. So I'm Adam Silver. I run the South Bay WordPress meetup here in Southern California, and I also blog and podcast over at kitchensinkWP.com.
Right then, thanks for the introduction. So we're going to have a general discussion. We're going to try and keep it quick and sweet, get it moving, and then spend about 20 minutes on that, 25 minutes, and then go on the main topic, which will be how WordPress and social media. So basically, one of the stories I put up was around the new functionality that WordPress org is doing around downloads, showing not actually downloads but also activation. So I wondered if I could ask the panel, do they think this is a good thing? I think it is. And were they surprised about what plugins were getting activated? Anybody wants to jump in? Silence. Go on, somebody.
So I'll take it. Sally, you got something?
I have something, but go ahead.
I was going to say, I like the fact that it shows active installs versus just downloads. I think it's actually a little more accurate of what's going on in the space of the plugin itself. And especially if you're a plugin developer and you're charging for, if you have a freemium model or a premium model, I think it's actually kind of cool to see what's really being active, what's being used versus just a download is a download. It's no big deal because it could be turned off immediately. So, my 2 cents.
I think it helps users too in terms of, people always ask me in terms of, well, how do you know if it's good or if it's going to work? And I always tell them, recently it was, look at the reviews, look at the latest time it was updated. You can look at the downloads, but I think it's awesome. I think it's going to help users determine, okay, people are actively using this. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, the list published on PostStat wasn't that exciting or surprising, except, I've heard Matt talk about how many installs of Hello Dolly are actually live. But what I've found useful is that as I am working, if I need to install something and it's not a plugin I'm already familiar with, figuring out, in addition to how recently it's been updated, how many active installs there are. Because if they're still active, it probably hasn't broken anything, even if it's not, hasn't been updated recently. That has helped me decide what to check out.
I don't know how many sites are actually still active that have active plugins on them, because you have the problem of sometimes someone starts a site and then never updates it at all, let alone even looks at that site again. I don't know how many there are there, but I'm sure there's a lot of legacy plugins that at the time somebody installed them and was using them, and then for whatever reason just ignored the site. So I don't necessarily think it's the best thing, but it's better than what we've had.
Yeah.
The other question real quick is, what if it's a premium plugin, for example, a backup buddy that you have a license for, you can authenticate multiple sites, unlimited, it would say. Whereas is that being counted through repository or no? It's just that there's that slight confusion, which I noticed because I have a handful of sites. I was looking at iThemes and or Headway even, and it shows that I have them on these sites, and 4 of those are gone, but they're still licensed for that site. I need to deactivate them. Not that it matters. I have unlimited, but still, I wonder if that's showing up in repository.
I would assume not. None of the I don't see a single premium or single one that isn't in the repo up there.
Right.
At the very least, I would imagine Gravity Forms would have made that list.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, that's all. I'm done then.
I think it's a little bit interesting to go by actual active installs instead of downloads, because you can see on the list before all-in-one SEO has more downloads than Yoast, but with the updated stats of showing how many active installs there are, you can see certain plugins that have less downloads actually have more active installs, and that's one of the cases right there.
Yeah. What do you think, Dustin?
I think it's a good change. It's we used to use that number of downloads, the 24 million downloads for Contact Form 7, but in reality, that doesn't help anything. It's been talked about here before, but how often do you download plugins and never use them? How many times do you click that update button? Because updates counted in those old downloads, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. There were some unusual stats that just happened. I know that I looked at my plugin and it's I forget how many downloads I used to have or active the downloads from before, and then when it shows that there's only a handful of active installs, it's okay, that makes a lot more sense. Because I really didn't think that there were hundreds of people using my plugin. It was just because I created it and I wanted it for me. And so I think it just gives you a better idea of how many people are actually using it. So.
I've downloaded your plugin 75 times just because.
Because you want to see the stats.
Bumping the stats. The other thing that I really like, though, in the refresh is just the ability to see how many people are running old versions, which I think is kind of a neat thing. It's not necessarily super useful for a developer. It is, but it isn't. You think, there's this many people running the old version. How do we get them to update? And it's just kind of some interesting information that I think is really cool.
Yeah, there were good points, Dustin. I personally, myself, I think any improvement, I actually think it is a great improvement. I think they could do some bit more, but I think it's on the right track. And the more information, the more detailed information that's available, the better it is. But I've also listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of people that are actively involved in commercial plugins, and the rating system has kind of had some criticism, but it's a difficult area. What do you think, Adam, around how bad ratings can affect kind of semi-commercial plugins?
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, I downloaded 75 times, but I wouldn't give it a half a star each time. So. Is that bad? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, honestly, I think that too many people are worried about ratings versus functionality. It happens in the podcasting sphere itself. Dustin knows what I'm talking about. It happens in plugins. It happens in themes. You know, look for reviews. Look for someone who took the time to write a review or a comment versus just a star, versus clicking a button. And at the worst, I mean, obviously, I would stay away from on a live site that's big and important on something that's brand spanking new unless you know the developer. I mean, I trust Dustin's because I know him. But if I didn't know him, I wouldn't go and use that plugin for a bit, or I would try it on a dev site. You know, I think there's a balance there. You want to be careful. You know, you're gonna navigate automatically to the bigger, most popular ones because of obviously they have time behind them. They have more, you know, they've been tested more thoroughly, I guess. So.
Right then, thanks. So I think we'll go on to the next. I think we had some good stuff there. Go on to the next general story that really interested me, and is a WordPress plugin. Can a WordPress plugin be a startup? And I actually think it's you know, we've interviewed some people that have actively built their business by plugins and themes, and you know, got fantastic businesses now. So I would say definitely yes, and it's an exciting part of WordPress. So I just wondered, go on, Sally, have you got any?
The plugin cannot be a startup. You can build a startup around a plugin business, around, you know, I mean, if you're already doing services or something else as your business, and you want, you know, and you're going to start creating plugins, you could make a new business for the plugin or add them to your existing business, in which case the plugin is definitely not a startup. Doesn't mean you couldn't try doing something like raising funds to let you build it faster. But you know, the plugin is a plugin. The theme is a theme. You can have it's the business model of selling themes and plugins is well established.
Right. What do you think, Kim?
Well, I kind of agree. I think to me a plugin is a product. You know, at the same time, if you look at something in more of the marketing space, like take Optimized Press, I mean, you know, or Gravity Forms, they've created a business around it. But I think it's a product. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a startup as well. But I've not developed any, but I've had some developed for me, and it's a ton of work. And so you start doing that, and you start selling a plugin, all of a sudden you've got support and you've got marketing. There's a lot that goes around it. But again, I think at the end of the day, the plugin is a product. And so then if you're going to try a startup around that, what is the business plan for taking that further? You know, so I'm kind of ambiguous on it, but to me, it's a product.
Right, so go on to the gentleman. Dustin. I always try and get my guests. Go on, Dustin. Any views?
I'm going to agree. I think that it's essentially been wrapped up. It's a plugin is not a startup, it's a product, and then you build your company or your startup company all around it. So that's where I sit with this discussion.
Yeah, I just want to point, when I go on to anybody else, is that my position is slightly different. I think if it's a pure functionality plugin, yes, it's a product. But there's a way to move this further on. Obviously, it's well known as a service plugin. When you're building a SaaS model, a subscription model on a particular form of functionality, and you're using a service plugin, I see that as more of a plugin as a business. So I don't totally agree with the previous statements, but they have their...
The service you provide in connection with your plugin is part of, you know, the whole thing is your business, which is your startup. So it may be partly services and partly plugin, but again, the plugin itself is a clump of code.
Yeah, all right. What about Adam? Go on. What do you think?
I looked at the repository. There's no plugins called Startup. So
that's just an opportunity waiting.
There's WP Start Bar, there's 404 to start, but there's something called Startup. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, yeah, it's part of a business model. It's not, it's a product of a business. Not to say that, and that's that. And I'm done.
All right, John. What about John? What's your feeling about the article?
When I read this article, I felt it was like really oversimplifying what a startup was. A couple of years ago, I had the great opportunity to meet Ryan Carson, and he told me, a startup is basically you're looking for rapid, accelerated growth, and doing a business at scale, and really that's the differentiator between like a normal business and a startup. And you look at WP Engine right now, they just got another round of funding. They're trying to grow at scale. Now they have a service that they provide, which is hosting. And they're trying to get as big a user base as possible. Now what this article says about a WordPress plugin being a startup, and you can have 12 different plugins and 12 different startups, and you have a landing page with a logo, and that's a startup. It's greatly simplified. If you had a family of plugins and you sold a subscription to the whole family, and you could figure out a way to be profitable minus the support issues, then maybe you could have a startup. But you need the scale, and there's very few plugins in the WordPress ecosystem that have that sort of scale.
Yeah, they're great points, John. What about you, David?
I think most of the topic's been covered well. I can't think of a good example of one that would be itself defined as a startup. I could say, besides the pusher off top, I'm thinking SwiftType was one that I remember becoming popular because it went through Y Creator, but they have a whole business built around it that's outside of just their WordPress plugins as well. I can't think of any good examples of one where I'd say, oh, that is definitely a startup, unless you're thinking of a company that is focused specifically on one plugin. You may know Rocket Genius, but really you probably only know them for one tool, Gravity Forms, for instance.
Yeah, I think what John said about the article is it was simplistic. It was just, there was tones that, it wasn't exactly the article that I found fantastic, but it was just around the culture of building up a business through WordPress. But of course there are problems with that because of the scalability of how far you can take that in WordPress. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it? But that's why I brought it up.
I think the same question applies. The final question that Sarah asked at the end of the article, what are you missing before you can call it a startup, is the same thing that would apply here, or the same thing that apply to pretty much any company. At what point can you say, yep, this is a startup, or no, this isn't a startup anymore, or did it ever become one in the first place? I do service business. I wouldn't consider what I do a startup because I'm not doing a SaaS model or any of the other fun acronyms that have come out to try to scale to more users than I can personally take on.
Yeah. Well, I see you. I thought it was panel. I thought you brought some fantastic stuff there. I just want to go to the next story, which is about Kickstarter. If you've got a project that would benefit the WordPress community, what are the and you need resources? Do you think kind of setting it, publicising it and trying to raise some capital through Kickstarter is a good way? Because I sent you an example of one that was publicised, probably wasn't handled that well, but didn't reach its target. And what do you feel about this whole exercise of trying to build plugins or services that would help the whole WordPress community and try and finance them through something like Kickstarter? What about Kim? What's your feelings?
Kickstarter's great, but Kickstarter only succeeds if you're going to be able to market it and get enough people to that, what is the end value? It's like always, what is the problem that you're solving? Or, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys saw the recent success of, I think it's Exploding Kittens, the oatmeal. They hit $1 million within like it was crazy. But so, I think, is Kickstarter the right platform for, something that solves a problem in the WordPress community? I don't know, but Kickstarter, to me, it's going to succeed based on what you're doing to drive people. And it just doesn't seem like the WordPress products get that type of marketing attention or the sharing to the same degree to raise that type of money necessarily. I think Kickstarter is a great platform, and if it's solving a problem, then absolutely, I'd be all over it.
But I think you kind of raised a point that you chose something that they raised all that money so quickly. They could have raised a lot of money really quickly even if Kickstarter didn't exist. It helped make it more fluid. Like the transaction was easier. Here's a place. Here's where you give money. Here's what you get to make those pre-sales. But I mean, the new Pebble, theirs is about to end, I think, tomorrow. They're at $20 million or something now. They've blew through that record pretty quickly. But they're known. I mean, they hit the record the first time around. People already knew they wanted it. They're just basically doing pre-sales. If you go look at Kickstarter now and type in WordPress, it's going to be one, very few projects in the first place, and two, even fewer that got anywhere close to what they were looking to get. Because the ones that the ones that are really successful, the ones that you hear about people talk on the news, reading Rainbow recently, Pebble, Exploding Kittens, what are some of the other big ones recently? They're ones that they already had a big built-in audience. If one of the bigger plugin makers who already exist came out into the Kickstarter, I'm sure they'd raise the money. But that's because they already had people to reach out to.
Yes, that's well put, David. It's kind of it's a shame, really, but it's just the realities of the situation. It's a kind of perversion of the for the reasons of something like Kickstarter in a way. Perversion's probably too strong a word, really, isn't it? What do you think, Dustin?
So, I feel that they could have done a great job with a large audience already on Kickstarter. But the way that I feel about WordPress, and this story goes back a couple years, and I don't know exactly when it happened, but the community at WordPress, like if you give something to the community, if you contribute to the community, like people are going to find ways to reward you and give back to you. So I don't know if you remember a few years ago, remember when the new Mac towers came out, those little black towers? And within, I don't know, a day or two, they had sent Chris Lemma one, just based on the fact that he's super helpful and people donated little amounts of money to him, so that, or as a campaign to give him a computer, because he gives back so much to the community. If these folks, and honestly, like I didn't see even the crowdsourcing, I didn't hear anything about VersionPress until a few minutes ago when I was reading this article. And so like for me to be involved in the WordPress community day in and day out and not hear anything about it, I think it sounds like a good project, and I'd be interested in learning more and finding out more, but I never heard of it. And it didn't just come through my WordPress circles that I hang out in. So I think had these guys created something that was a kind of a minimal viable product type of a deal, put it out in the repository and let people start using it, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want this feature and I want this feature. Then they could say, hey, we're going to create this premium product and we're going to charge for it, but we're going to first start by asking people who are already using it to donate us some money, or pay up front for the plugin, and then you'll get it in 3 months or whatever that looks like. So I think it just needed, I think they needed more of a backing before they actually went to Kickstarter.
Yeah, great stuff. What about you, Adam? Got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. There's the methodology, it's the subject. Right, before we say that, if anyone wants to send me a laptop or money towards a new laptop, I'll just start small. I'll take a new laptop bad. Okay. Or just a backpack. And
it's going to you tomorrow.
Yeah, Tortuga makes one I really like a lot. So yeah, you have to try it out. I think Dustin's dead on. He's right. I mean, there's a philosophy of Dane Sanders, I think the foundation, they do it that way as well, where you can go to a company and say, let me solve your pain. What's that worth to you? Put something out first possibly, and then come back and ask for, if you want different versions or different updates, whatever, then you can make some additional monies. But the way it was, it just didn't work out this time. I mean, not to say it's a bad idea, it just didn't work. I'm not going to overthink it.
I think Dustin, what you said about it was really quite insightful. I think in general it's not a bad idea. Just in that particular case, it wasn't handled the best way. But it is what it is, isn't it? I want to go on to the final, and then we'll get on to the main topic about SEO, WordPress SEO, and the security flaw that was found. Obviously this happens, and this is, can happen, happen in Jetpack, happens in many. I think the bigger question, and are there a group of plugins that are so kind of almost put on almost every site that they become, but they only got very small teams? Is it really better that they became, there was some process that they might actually become part of I was going to say Jetpack, or have the larger resources, or is the present way things are done the only way they can be done? Because I think it was handled really well. But will there become a plugin where it's not handled very well, and that could really damage WordPress? What about Kim? Go on, Kim. What do you think?
Yeah, can you phrase the question? So you're just saying, should WordPress SEO be part of Jetpack, or was that the question?
Yeah, it's such a popular plugin, and there's a group of really popular plugins. Can they be just left to the actual developers to be expected to support them?
Well, that's probably a developer question, but I look at it with Yoast, and what they put out to the community is huge, but it's not his business model. So unless I don't know, I'm not expert enough in the freemium model and how this works in terms of the ROI that the developers are going to get for this. I mean, they contribute a ton, so. Personally, I don't know how it would get so big to me, right? If you start pulling in all these plugins that are getting supported at a core level as opposed to the individual developers. I think that the individual developers and the companies that do those plugins like Yoast probably, to me, it just seems like it's a smarter move for the user in the end.
Yeah. What about you, Sally?
One thing I have observed is that the larger the team, the less efficient it is. I mean, theoretically, all of these plugins are open source, and anybody who has a patch can submit one. But if you want Automatic or somebody to oversee, the security or whatever, to do code review on it, to do whatever with it, they're going to have to hire some extra people.
Yeah.
It seems like Yoast patched this up pretty fast, and there have been popular plugins with security vulnerabilities. You probably hear about one at least once a month, and the internet has not come to an end.
No, true. What about you, David? What do you think?
Slightly off topic, but playing off, the internet hasn't come to an end with any of these vulnerabilities these plugins have had, even though some of them have gotten to the point where, heck, I'll just think of, say, Tim Thumb, where even their owner has to, disavow them and say, do not use my thing anymore, stop using it. So they have to actually put up pages on their website to tell people, stop using this old thing. Most of what I know about the story is people feeling uneasy about the fact that, or most of the non-positive stuff is people feeling uneasy about the fact that a plugin had the auto update. That it was pushed without me giving it consent to push an update to my site. I'm only hearing that from developers, basically. I'm not hearing that from anyone else because I think the average user probably didn't even notice anything happened. I'm betting most people have no idea there was a security flaw or even that there's versions to the software that they're using. They just got on their site, it was updated, and okay, away they went. Trying to phrase it more than just pointing that out, pointing that thinking out. No, if there is a problem, as long as it's not actively, taking down hundreds, thousands of sites that people outside of our little bubble of WordPress community people notice, I don't think it's going to cause such a problem that, say, gives more of the bad name, like, oh, WordPress is insecure or anything like that.
Oh, great. Well, what do you think, John?
I think that in this case, they kind of had to push the update. Yoast is one of the, installed on most, one of the top 5 plugins on WordPress installs. And so I think they were within their, they made a reasonable decision there. And to be honest, there's like a lot of plugins that have a lot worse vulnerabilities than Yoast or the WooCommerce one, and both of those were quickly patched. I would be more concerned about the thousands of themes out there that are not, being updated by their owners. With themes that have the plugins bundled. I think that's a much bigger threat. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I think you put a good point, because I was listening to WordPress Weekly, and they were saying about a survey about the amount of clients that don't even have any kind of backup apart from their hosting provider, and it was mind-boggling. And it's like a different world, I kind of spilt my coffee when I heard that. What about you, Dustin? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're drawing this really fine line with what we can manually push out automatically, or manually automatically, that doesn't make sense. But what hosting providers, what services, what people can automatically just update the software for you. I think that it does a really good job, and it's very helpful for a lot of people to just automatically get the newest version of stuff. But on the other hand, it's almost like they're holding your hand and like they're just doing and making those updates for you. So it's really kind of hard to think about, and I don't really know which side of the camp I fall onto, because I'm the guy who wants to read every update. Like every time there's an update, I want to read the change log and see what's happening. I want to make sure that there's nothing that's really gonna break my site, or I always install locally first, and then I push my updates to my live version just in case there's anything problem. I keep it all in version control, so in case there's a snafu, I can easily roll back. Like there wasn't a case like this, I had to roll back because it fixed the security flaw, but you never really know. And so I don't like that. I like the concept of being able to push out auto updates to people who probably would never update or wouldn't update for months and months and months. But then on the other hand, I don't like that ability that you now have given your hosting provider that ability to push a button and automatically deploy changes on your server. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm exactly the same, actually. I kind of oscillate. I think you put it really well, Dustin. What about you, Adam?
Ditto what he said.
All right, that's great. We're finished with that topic. So we're moving on. Go on. Got anything else to say, Adam?
No, I really don't. I mean, it's no, I'm good.
Okay.
I actually had a little.
Yeah, go
Thumbs
on.
up.
That's all right.
Go on. Anybody else want to go on, David?
Oh, okay, never mind.
Go on, David. Say something more.
I think it's important. Again, Dustin, you are definitely a power user, far above 99% of the people who use WordPress. So you know to make those changes. You know why they're important. You know why it's important to test things on staging before pushing live. You have a lot of things that the average user doesn't know. And if we keep talking about wanting to make WordPress easier for the end user so that more people will adopt it, I think it's important to make it easier to help them out. A few times this year, I've had to fix sites and clusters of sites that have had problems that have been hacked due to having a Revolution slider installed because it came from whatever theme they bought from certain theme websites that bundle plugins, or other ways that they got it. And I have to go in and fix these. I would like hosts to know, okay, this thing right here is a problem. I don't want this thing on my server. I think it's important for the hosts to do that because they want to protect their brand and reputation as well. We don't own server. Well, most of us don't own the servers we're putting things on. We're basically renting space on them, and so we have to do our best to tidy up and do our own upkeep and everything. But when it comes to maintenance, we call whoever our maintenance company is. In my analogy of renting a house, this is your hosting company. I would be fine with the hosting company saying this plugin right here definitely is a problem. It's going to compromise not only your site but everyone else's site, so we're just going to get rid of it.
Yeah, greatly put, Dave. So I think we go on to the main subject of the evening, that's social media, WordPress and social media. And I just want to put the first question out to the panel and then probably ask Kim to comment first about it. And it's WordPress started life as a publishing platform and also a community platform. You got BuddyPress, you got the forum at the core of WordPress. But I'm one of them, and also most of my clients switch off the forum functionality. And I think some of this is that it's hard to maintain, it gets a lot of spam, and also a lot of people now see social networks as a kind of forum. So are forums really kind of dying a slow death, or is it something a bit more than that? What do you feel, Kim?
Well, it depends on the customer. Most of my clients or anybody that I work with, they've got an online business, and personally, I would never maintain a forum. I don't have the time, that goes into moderating a forum. And so it's a lot easier I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, whether it's through a mastermind or clients are setting it up or through a course, because it also allows a much easier, you've got the thread right there where people can follow in the feed a conversation or questions that are happening. And so to me, it's, just not having to log in. And if you're on social media frequently, it's you're there. You see everything happening. So it depends on the client, I think. Personally, I wouldn't touch a forum. I just don't have the time to moderate it. And so I think going into that, it's totally going to depend on the business and the users and how that forum serves them.
Yeah. What do you feel, Sally? Do you think it's what Kim's outlined, but also is it the kind of mechanisms of moderating? They need improving. What do you feel?
Well, anywhere that you have community, you have to have moderation. So somebody is going to spend time doing the community manager job, and whether that's managing a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, or a BBPress forum or a full BuddyPress install or a Google Plus community, any of those things, if you set them up, somebody has to manage them.
Yeah.
So that part, the fact that if you add functionality to your site, you add maintenance responsibility. And if you add that kind of thing anywhere, you add maintenance responsibility. In terms of whether somebody wants a forum on their site, it really is an issue of the client's needs. Sometimes they say, well, everybody is already on Facebook. We want to do all that stuff over on Facebook. And sometimes, maybe it's a site where you've got a service or a product that you're offering support for, and you want a support forum on your own site.
Yeah, great. What do you feel, Adam?
Yeah, I know of probably half a dozen groups, businesses that had forums at one point, masterminds almost, and they switched them all off and went over to Facebook, plain and simple, or Google Plus, which is even more rare, but more Facebook, because it's just easier, plain and simple. I helped one of them. I had one myself, and I still would run it. I mean, I had a mastermind. I ran it on my own subdomain as a P2 install. Worked fine, and I only moved us to Facebook because we disbanded, but we wanted to stay in touch. And we're always on Facebook, so I could take down the subdomain. I just haven't yet. I don't want to. I feel painful if I take that down. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of maintenance and ease of use. The only issue is if when Facebook goes down the 5 times a year, 2 things happen: A, work gets done, and B, you can't connect to your group. So.
I just want to put this to Dustin. I totally, part of me agrees with Adam, But there's another element to this, Dustin. Facebook owns. You publicize it on Facebook. It's Facebook's. You put it on Twitter. It's Twitter's. If it's on your site, it's yours. That's a big difference, isn't it? But does the forum maintenance and supervision that's required needs a bit more work from Automatic? And is it a mechanical thing, or is forums fundamentally dying? What do you think, Dustin?
Personally, I think the forum structure is dying. Because of the fact, I love the fact that forums live on your site. You own the content. If you want to modify it, you move them, do whatever, you own it. But one of the primarily horrible things about how forums work is, and I've experienced this, I'm in a monthly group that has a forum post, and you have to know that you have to subscribe to get new topics. Most of the time you don't think, oh, I should go over and check that forum to see what people are talking about. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, you'll see that those communities that are on social media, you will see that content when you log in. I'm in a private WordPress group. When I log into Facebook, it will show me those posts every once in a while. They'll come right to my email. There's no setting up with a forum. You have to go and say subscribe to all new contents, and then or all new forum posts, and then if you want to subscribe to a thread, then you have to subscribe to that personal thread. With these social media updates, they basically these companies have set it up so it's auto subscribe all the time, so you get every update. You may get way too many, but you're not going to be missing out on the conversation that's happening. I know before I set up the the RSS subscribe whatever it was for this forum, I was never remembering even to go in and look at it. Now I get all the posts come directly to me, and then I can decide, do I want to respond, do I not, and then I can engage in that way.
Right. What do you feel, David?
I think the forum might be dying, but not necessarily for the same reason everyone else is saying. One, ease of use is a big problem, but you can get over that a bit by having someone who's knowledgeable to manage it, using social media to log into it to make it more fluid transition between the two. A lot of those things. I think the issue is more that other places have done forums, but have made them a one-stop shop. So not only do you not have to go check Facebook to see that there's an update, because you are, as we said, all on Facebook 24/7, but you can check all of the groups that you're a part of on Facebook. If you're a Reddit user, you can be part of a group about one topic, but also about a completely different topic, but in the same place. So there's less movement they have to make. As far as forums for you mentioned Dustin mentioned that he doesn't have to go find these things, that they come to him. That's the same way most companies are thinking about it now. They realize we have to go to where our customers are. So instead of making them come to us, unless it's a company that's behind the times and has you go submit support tickets, that's the only way that you can get in touch with them. They will come to you on social media if they're a good company and keep track of it. Or with some companies, they don't even check their own forums, and then you tweet angrily at them, and they respond within 5 minutes. I also get that too.
Twitter's awesome.
Yeah. What about you, John? What do you think?
I think overall, forums as a whole are dying, but I think individually there are a lot of places that have very active forums. There's a lot of membership sites that build the community first, and that's what makes their forums successful. I think if you just set up a forum by itself, it's really hard to maintain. But each of these things, a forum is a community, and those things are, a community is an organic object that can change, and it does change over time. There's a lot of forums that started on Facebook as groups and then moved over to dedicated sites as part of a subset of a larger membership site. And there's some forums that start on Facebook and stay there because that's where the people that are part of that community are comfortable being. I think if you really want to start a forum in 2015, you have to do some advanced work. And whether that's writing a blog, doing a podcast, and building a community around that content, and then launching a membership site, around that community that you've built, and then build the forum into that. That's one way I think that you can have a very successful forum still.
Yeah, and actually, just off of that, what John said is, I believe 48 days. What's his name? Dustin. What's his name?
Dan Miller.
Dan Miller has a podcast, has a website, has products and services, and 48days.net is the forums. Is where people chime in and they go and they help each other. So it's saying that exactly that. It's very true. I'm starting this year. I'm starting a new bulletin board system, a BBS, dial up to WordPress.
Get that on Kickstarter now.
Yes, 24. I'm going to limit it at 2,400 BPS. Nothing faster.
Yeah, right.
So Jonathan, do you listen to 48 Days?
I have, yeah.
No, not Jonathan. I meant to say, who listens to 48 Days? That's interesting, Adam.
I love the 48 Days. I have the book, too. I mean, it's totally working for me. I've gone through it twice, and I still have my crappy job. So.
There we go. I'm just gonna put this and then ask Kim to answer it. Kim, I'd like the panel to give the input about how you feel your experience of using social media to help build up your own business. What are the key things that you've learnt? And also, do you feel that most clients use it effectively, and have you used it on reflection as effectively as you could? And I'll throw that to Kim first. What's your feelings?
That's kind of a big question.
There's
a lot in there.
Let's take a little bit then.
Okay. For me, I mean, I've been on social media, I don't know, like 7 years, but I definitely kicked it up a couple years ago. Consistency is key, and engaging. You have to communicate and be ready to engage there, and so I've got someone that helps me now with it, because I can't, there's just no way I can show up in all those spaces. But because I also do Facebook advertising, I tend to be on Facebook more. I'm in some groups there. But it's pretty amazing to me. I would say one of the biggest things that's working, I'm floored with Facebook video, the reach that I get. I can post a video, and within minutes, it's got a reach of 100. I've got, 50, 60 views, like in minutes. And
Wow.
So that traction is phenomenal. It's working really great for me. So I'm going to keep testing that. YouTube came out with cards. They're getting rid of the annotations. So, it's just fascinating. I look at the stats, and I look at where I've got maybe more male followers and people connecting on Twitter, or I look at who's following me on Facebook. So I'm just trying to pay attention to what content is working on which platform, so it's key. I think for me, social drives more than search. It's how I show up. And even testing, with the podcast. When I started the podcast, it became one of my top traffic sources in 4 months. It just blew me away with that. And so then I started saying, okay, well, maybe I should start doing, and I've only done a couple, but a video. And so I post a video that I've got a new podcast episode coming out, and that's working really well. So, you have you have to find that place where you can show up consistently, and I would focus that. But it's key. I think it's hugely important.
What do you think, Sally?
I use social media for a lot of things, and I don't know that in any way I could quantify whether and how it's brought me business. I have noticed that in the past 6 months to a year, work finds me, but a lot of that is, and some of that is about actually the meetup. That people I have encountered because I run the meetup end up referring work to me.
Okay. All right. What about you, Dustin? What's your feelings about? Because I've seen a lot of the kind of WordPress community. They're really into Twitter, but they don't seem to utilise the others. Is it a really effective way to bring business if you're in part of the WordPress community, and if you're a client? What's some of the things that's worked for you and how you use it?
Yeah, honestly, I agree a lot with what Kim said. I think social media works really well if you have people that are following you and paying attention to what you're saying. On the other hand, like I found a great amount of success when I launched my podcast 4 years ago, because I was in the business of developing websites for people. I wanted to do anything that they needed help with. And while I didn't know while I was like teaching people on a podcast exactly what to do, they still came back to me to hire me to do things because they didn't want to do it themselves. They didn't want to try to figure it out themselves. And so it worked out for me that I used the social media to tell people about my podcast, but the podcast was what really drove people back because they could know and like me and understand who I was just by listening to my voice week after week and that consistency. There was a lot of times that I had to tell people like, oh, it's going to be 3 or 4 months out so we can get you a project. They're like, it's okay. I trust you. And that just says a whole lot. When I don't know a lot of these people that follow me, there's a lot of times I'll go to WordCamps and go to different places, and people will come up to me. I've been recognized just by my voice before. People will say, hey, I knew that you were here, but I didn't know where you were, and then I heard your voice, and they were able to meet me and whatnot. And I mean, it's absolutely awesome and cool and humbling and all at the same time, like that we're able to just use the medium that works well for us and make that let that be our platform, because I'm okay with Twitter. Like I forget to use it sometimes. Like Facebook, I'm rarely on, but I know that for me, consistently getting behind the microphone each and every week, like that's the best way that I can grow my business and my brand. Just continue to give value to the WordPress community.
Hey, Dustin, real quick question.
The keyword, which is consistently.
Yeah, Dustin, you're number 1 on the WordPress search on iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
That's not a question.
So in 4 years, So here's a question. But in 4 years, how long did it take you to get there? And what was your increase in number of listeners every year? Have you increased every year?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know. I forget when I kind of moved to that threshold. So there was a while that I was, I just got started. Then I moved to number 1, and then I was like 2, 3, and 4, like kind of just bounced around. And honestly, it's the consistency, and I feel like for me, like I'm not one of those guys that at the beginning and the end of every show, like ask for 5-star reviews and come over to iTunes and tweet about the show. Like I rarely, maybe 3 or 4 times a year I might remember to say, hey, leave a review on iTunes. But yet there's still 160 plus reviews on iTunes because people just find it helpful and they head over there. But the consistency is huge. Like I haven't missed a week. I come out every Wednesday. I haven't missed a week since December of 2010, and so I make that my utmost priority. Like that's the number 1 thing that gets done every week. Whether or not I can think of a show topic, sometimes it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm recording before it comes out at 5. Just because I couldn't think of a topic that week. But I think for me, it's all about that consistency. It's just all about that's something that I really strive on. Like I haven't missed a week now in 220 plus weeks, and so I'm not going to miss any time.
Right, and consistency is the key to a loyal network, and the network is the key to the success of your campaign. My husband has spent basically 18 hours a day for the last year building a network. He launched something, and because of his network, he had 20,000 visitors in the first 24 hours. And enormous spread. But, this wasn't like, oh, he built the site in 2 days and look what happened. No, he built the network in a year and look what happened.
Yeah. What about you, David? What, if you're working with clients and they ask you, how do I fit WordPress with social media, what are some of the things you say to them, David?
Besides the obvious of making sure whatever is going on to your site is being shared with social media, and preferably whatever is going in social media is being shared back on your site. Admittedly, I don't put a lot of focus on it, just because there are certain clients who certain networks work better for them. That I've seen that there are certain things that I can't see to say, hey, you are. I have some clients who are lawyers, and I'm not going to say, hey, you should start an Instagram account or something like that. And it's good to focus on the specific ones that work best for them. Obviously, Facebook is much more general purpose because almost everyone's there. But even that, there are certain things that I would, caution them on posting, especially for clients like that when they might have legal issues depending on what they're posting. Or it doesn't matter how much it can get them more followers if they're going to get sued for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Adam? Is there anything that, because you're very heavily involved in social media, are there anything
So my day job, I am a director of social media marketing for a company. It's so specific in that niche that I'm in. So I can't use that as comparison to what I do in the WordPress side. In the WordPress side, the key is consistency. I mean, case in point, I've been at mine for 56, 57 weeks now. I record on weekends. I might come out on Monday. Hold on, Dustin's totally getting me. I closed the window. That sucks. Sorry, everybody. Totally side note. Totally just send me a message. 56, 57 weeks.
I don't know what's happening with Jay.
Totally wins tonight. Anyway,
I think we don't have a smell machine here.
So literally, I mean, I teach the WordPress 101 class, and I tell people in my class, if you're going to have a blog as your landing page, blog. If you're not, don't land on a blog. Make that. I mean, in my photography life, my blog is the last tab on my navigation because I'm lazy. Last time I blogged was October. So the key is the consistency, and no matter what, it takes time. Dustin's number one because he's been around one of the longest. On that list of the top podcasts, and if you type in WordPress, half of them or more than half are gone. You don't make it past episode 7 is the theories, that Cliff Ravenscraft says. 7, 10, 12. If you don't find more things to talk about for 7 weeks, whether, weekly or bi-weekly, you don't have the passion behind it. And I'm with Dustin sometimes, sometimes okay, what am I going to talk about? It's better when it's current and relevant and stuff. I'm recording tonight or tomorrow morning before San Diego WordCamp. I'm leaving tomorrow for, be sick at work tomorrow. I feel a migraine tomorrow. Anyway, it's a matter of, hope he doesn't listen to this show.
What's his email address? We can send a link right now.
We're going to send it to him.
It'd be a blessing in disguise. Anyway, so, it's just a matter of, knowing that you want to do it. It should never be a task. Blogging, podcasting, Twitter, any of the social media aspects shouldn't be like, oh, I have to do this. Once you do that, you need to find a different outlet to build your audience. Because they'll hear it in your voice. Simple as that. They will hear it in your voice. Or in your typing, etc.
Hey, by the way, Kim, you're number 5 today.
Okay, good. I'll get up there.
I'm going to ask John, but I just want to ask a quick question to Kim. You did a couple of podcasts that were very detailed about your mythology when it came to social media, and I was really impressed with the detail. And I think it's something. Would you agree that's one of the things that people fail? They don't realise that you've got to have a real structure. Look at your figures. Renew your strategy, move forward. I was really impressed what you said in a couple of your podcasts. Do you think that's the thing that a lot of people miss out when it comes to social media, Kim?
I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss out in business. You have to look at all your numbers. You have to look at all your traffic stats. It's not necessarily fun stuff, but anything that you're going to be spending time and energy to drive traffic to, whether it's a blog or a podcast, you should be paying attention to it. So, it's really important. And that's why I spend more time on Facebook, because of the traffic I get back from it, and so I pay attention and I put more energy into those things. I'd love to tell you it was a stellar strategy, but it's really just been more of a focus over the last couple of years. But anything you're going to do, you should look at those numbers.
You got to put numbers in. You got to put time in. The other thing is, I like Twitter better than Facebook, in the sense that it's immediate and responsive and it's right then and there. Facebook, people aren't always on. I mean, I'm always on. It's part of my job, and that's what I don't probably do much on a personal level. It's hard to be everywhere, like Kim says, but you try to do the best you can. And, it's just a matter of engage where you want to engage and where your audience will be. And Twitter does great boot camps. So.
What do you think, John?
A lot of what has already been said is true.
I made most of them up.
Yeah. Social media is, you have to choose what platforms you think you're going to do good on, and each business is geared toward a different platform. There's Facebook is more general purpose. For me, it really doesn't do much. I've not got a lot of return out of it. I've gotten a lot more return out of LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter than that. But some businesses, they might get a lot more reach out of say Pinterest and Facebook. But you have to know your audience. And again, the other thing is you have to publish consistently. And I think a lot of people give up too quick, and especially with local businesses and small businesses, and even people that I've seen on the web, they quit way too early, whether it be writing a blog, doing a podcast, or being present on social media because they don't get an immediate return.
Even launching a website. People launch websites in WordPress.com or .org, and they go, here I am, and they got no business. Well, that's step one of like 25 more steps to do.
Yeah.
And 2 to 3 years of hard work.
Yeah, I think Kim put it quite well in a couple of your podcasts. Kim said, half the battle is, deciding you're going to be there. You can actually do it, do something, be there.
It's that Stephen Pressfield mentality, right? The war of art, that you show up and you do the work.
And doing the work sorts the men and women from the boys and girls, doesn't it?
So just a real quick side note. So Dustin's currently number 1, Kim's number 5. I had my own leg on my podcast.
All right. Thank you for that.
I'm looking at him. Where are you?
It's number 19.
19.
All right.
First time I've ever counted. I've never gone and really looked until somebody sent off an email last week, but I just looked just now. I counted them over, like whatever. I'm like, to me, it doesn't matter. Honestly,
yeah, you got that whitewashed outlook. You were up higher last week.
Well, okay. I slept well last week. Now I can't sleep. Thanks a lot. I'm out.
Jonathan's coming back up. WP-Tonic.
Yeah, Tonic. I would really like to thank my panel. I'm going to have to excuse myself because I've got a prior important engagement with investors, which I cannot miss. So, have we got any questions from the chat room at all, Bill?
Yeah, we had one person chat in. I did tweet out like the 4,000 people, and we also saw that on the chat room when I could embed the feed.
All right, there we go. But I'm gonna leave things in the great hands of my co-host, Bill. I'm going to excuse me, but I would personally like to thank Kim, Dustin, and our normal panel. I actually think this has been a really interesting discussion. We've kept on topic, and I think our listeners will get something from this. But I sincerely thank you for coming on the show, Kim and Dustin.
My pleasure.
You've been great guests, and thank you, my panel. I am, Sally, a bit disappointed that your cats haven't appeared.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can do something about that.
Nice.
I've gone meerkat potty, so I'm into cats.
Just so you know, Dustin and I both did meerkat a little bit behind the scenes earlier in the show.
Oh, there you go. I'm always on meerkat. Well, thank you for that, Sally. Goodbye, folks.
So Jonathan's out. We'll all finish up on one last question, I guess, is a good way to do it.
Perfect.
I've got to go. For me, I've got to go set up. We have the state gymnastics out here in Reno, Nevada, so I got to go work in the rodeo and set it up tonight. That'll be a long night. So one quick question to everybody as you finish up. What do you think is your best advice to give to someone who's out there with WordPress, trying to get into WordPress, trying to do it as a living? What would you say for them to do to go get work, and also tie in a little bit of social media? And that's how you finish up, and we'll go through everybody once. Adam, we'll talk left to right and start with you.
Join your local community. Join a meetup, first and foremost.
Yep.
Don't go, I hate to say it this way, I won't say it that way. Just join a meetup and participate in the community, first and foremost.
That's a good advice.
I'd second that and go to join your local WordPress meetup. I would say also go to a local business mixers, do local business networking, so people see you and know what you do and see your face, because otherwise they might not find you.
Right. So you're looking at the local scene.
Yeah, you can go to boards like job boards too. I mean, that's one way to do it too, for sure.
Let's see, is it David's next? And then...
I'm going to echo, of course, going to your local meetups. I would add on something. I think Adam might have been about to say it. Not sure. But don't just go and just, or in my mind, something that turns me off is someone coming hi, I'm new here, give me work, or hi, I'm new here, let me tell you all how it's done. Anything like that you're encroaching upon all these people who've already been meeting for months or years beforehand. Even if you are super amazing, if no one knows that, they're just going to think that you're.
So you got to build trust. Got to build.
Are you guys talking about the WordPress meetups?
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah. It's relationship based. All business, and especially WordPress, it's relationship based. And work from a place of abundance. I say this time and time again in the panel, when I do stuff. There is plenty of work. Don't work from a place. Just because David gets work or Lockdown Design gets a gig doesn't mean I won't. There is plenty of work. You'll find clients. Just be patient, build community, be honest. I gotta go.
All right. Aloha.
Keep going.
So, Dustin.
Oh, I'm next.
Yeah,
so I was going to say the same thing, but I was going to go more along the line from what Adam said. There is so much work out there; it is unbelievable when it comes to WordPress. But I highly encourage people to go be helpful first. I got my start by searching for the hashtag WordPress and how-to WordPress and help WordPress on Twitter, and I would just go in and I would ask people if they figured out what the problem was. And, in 140 characters at a time, I would slowly build that relationship. And that first customer that I had was somebody, they wanted to move their widget area from the bottom of their theme to the sidebar of their theme. And I was very new into WordPress. I'm like, oh, that's no problem. I can do that in an hour's time. $50. It's all done. Well, like 10 hours later, I finally had it fixed. Well, that long story short, that person that I started working with ended up, I started working with her a lot, and I probably made $10,000 from her over the course of that contract that we had together. So she knew that I was, I was able to follow through with what I did. I explained it took much longer than I thought, but I'm still only going to charge you what I quoted, and just building that trust in that relationship really helped a lot. And so that's some of my advice. Start blogging, start just giving away free information about WordPress, and people will come to you and they'll ask you for your advice, and they'll want you to pay they want to pay you for what you can do with WordPress. Who's doing that, Adam? I figured. That was good. So
waited the whole hour for that.
I guess we'll finish up with Kim and then Sally.
Okay.
Sure. My customers are not in my local community. Those have tended for me to be my most challenging customers. So I think it's really important for you to get clear on who you want to work with and what audience you want to serve, because and that's where I spend my time. And again, I think there's a lot of opportunity in WordPress that's not necessarily just around building websites. I think documentation is a great opportunity. I think there's a lot of training opportunities out there. So you have to get clear on what your business looks like. Nice.
There's a lot of unique niches, whether it's like politics into WordPress or even podcasters into WordPress. A lot of podcasters don't know how to do WordPress.
Has anyone yet seen, I just saw this yesterday, theuserisdrunk.com?
No.
Okay, so this guy, he must have stumbled upon the perfect business model. Pay him $150 or more if you want to choose what he drinks. He will get drunk and then review your website for you. With the idea that it should be so easy that a drunk can use it. He's already a professional, UX person. He has his sterling resume and everything. That doesn't matter as much as you can pay someone to get drunk and record themselves looking at your website.
That's good.
So mine's gonna be user is stoned. How are there not going to be variations of this? The user shot up.com.
Right. The user's on meth.
Kim, first real fast, finishing up, Kim, do we cut you off there? Because that's true. You do, everyone's talking local, and you do talk in your podcast, Lace, about a different approach.
I do in my audience, and the connections and the relationship that I've built, a lot of it's been online through social media or in groups and masterminds. And, I like information marketing. I like doing a lot of the training and teaching. And so while I do site work, It's not the core of my business. And I want to go spend time where my clients are, where my audience is, not, that's just works for me, And I think it's finding your unique voice and how you show up in WordPress. I do think there's a lot of opportunities outside site development.
Right. Like I said, I think for a lot of podcasters, I think the WordPress platform is actually a challenge for them in some aspects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I had 14 students in a one-on-one class. I mean, every semester for the past 4 years I teach this class. I'm fortunate, but, I go into, it's basic 101, and I just barely spoke about, a permalink last night, and like half the class was like, whoa, permalink, It's crazy. We take it for granted that what we know,
So Sally, we'll finish up, and we'll call it a month for the WP-Tonic meetup, WordPress.
So further finding clients things. One thing that I did more of early on was participate in the LinkedIn WordPress forum, answering people's questions, and that got me the attention of O'Reilly, who had me act as technical reviewer on their missing manual for WordPress. And then another thing I did was teach classes through Media Bistro, and the marketing they did for that got me a lot of people inquiring about work, in addition to people taking the classes, and sometimes the people who took the classes have also come back for work, and those are people from all over the place. But I find that, if I participate in something locally like the meetup, I end up with clients who are not necessarily local clients, but they have come in part through my local connections.
That's interesting. Hey, Dustin, I lied. I've got to ask you this, since you have the #1 WordPress site. Your main business is not, you work as a team in a group. How has your podcast helped you with WordPress, other than people knowing you?
I think it's really interesting for me because I haven't shifted my podcast at all since I started at Automatic, and Automatic is 100% focused on WordPress.com. And so, like, my day job, I get to tell people about how to use WordPress.com and how to configure their themes. And I know that everything is in a controlled environment because we control all aspects of WordPress.com. People can't upload themes or plugins and stuff like that. But I see that my podcast gives me that reason, that excuse to get back into the WordPress space and figure out, okay, what are people struggling with and how can we do it with WordPress? I do monthly webinars where I get to dive into, do live video stuff where people have the opportunity to learn from me while I'm looking at my...
Yes!
Yeah. Right, so, but anyways, that's probably the biggest thing for me is I get the opportunity to just to work with WordPress on a personal level to teach other people about it.
So you haven't monetized it per se, but you still...
I had monetized it. I was making a good significant amount of money by running a consulting business, and I had some courses. But then I started with Automatic, and my 100% focus is with Automatic right now. I'm still getting people on an email list and sending out autoresponders and stuff like that. But that's not my primary goal right now. Is to make money with my. They highly encourage each automatician to spend time giving back to the community. And while I'm not the best programmer in the world, and I can update documentation and stuff like that, this is my way to give back to the community, to create free, valuable resources that...
Well, isn't it technically a conflict? I mean, automaticians can't have a separate business that is in the same realm.
Right. Because, essentially, I could say, hey, I'm better than these other programmers. You can pay me $500 an hour because I work for WordPress, which is not the right thing. So, yeah, I basically just shut down all my clients and gave them to other people, and now I focus 100% the time of helping people use WordPress.com.
Well, it's 6:42 on the West Coast right now. Anybody want to finish up, and we'll all get on our way to a dinner or to setting up a gymnastics event. A lot of equipment tonight.
That was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Take care. We'll sign off. Nice.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
In San Diego, if you're going to San Diego.
Yeah, sounds like fun. I wish you could go down there.
Yeah,
Orlando,
nice.
Seattle.
Or Miami. I'll be Miami, maybe. Or Denver.
Miami.
See you, everybody.
Aloha.
Bye.
Oh, I like the dog. The dog's a goodbye too.